IKIM FM, inspirasi utama anda. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And a very good afternoon to our dear listeners of IKIM FM. Welcome to this special interview. I'm your host, Batrisha Afrina. Alhamdulillah, thank you very much for listening to us from wherever you are. Either you are listening to this through radio or even through our social media pages, Facebook and YouTube. And in this special episode of special interview, we would like to talk about, I would say, a critical issue that shapes our world today. And here, the question that we would like to dive into is about, is Islam compatible with democracy? Now, what do we mean by democracy? At its core, democracy is a system of governance where power is vested in the people, and this is often exercised through elected representative. And it champions principles such as freedom, equality, justice, and also accountability. But how do these values align with Islamic teachings? Can the framework of democracy and the guidance of Sharia coexist harmoniously? So to help us explore these questions, we are honored to have with us is Dr. Maszlee Malik, the chairman of International Institute of Advanced Islamic Studies and also the former Minister of Education in Malaysia. Assalamualaikum, Doctor.
Waalaikumsalam.
It is such a pleasure to have you back in our studio.
Pleasure is always mine being here.
So for our listeners who have not know about this is actually second time Dr. Maszlee being with us in the studio. Before this, in our previous conversation, we talked about the education system in Malaysia, about the flaws and how can we better improve it. So here in this episode, we like to divert it a bit. We're going to talk about education, but here we are going to look at it through the perspective of democracy. So, Doctor, I would say as an opening of today's interview, actually, the topic is based on a debate that you recently participated. It's a debate at the Oxford Union in which the motion of the debate was this house believes Islam is incompatible with democracy. So, Doctor, you participated in that, so I undoubtedly the best person to shed light on this debate. So can you share with us, especially for our listeners who may not be familiar with it, could you share some insights about the debate, its premise, and how can you came to be involved in it?
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, Betty, and thank you, IKIM.FM, for inviting me once again to the studio and for the program. Oxford Union debate has been an integral part of Oxford identity itself. You know, Oxford students always being known as cream of the cream and being known as a prestigious university. They have their own tradition, they have their own culture, and they have their own, let me say, unchangeable identity. And part of it is their students' union. Students' union mean the students are being empowered to administrate themselves, to govern themselves, because the university put trust in their student and the ability of their students to self determine what is the best for themselves. So Oxford Union debate is one of the prestigious events that they always proud of. It is being organized on weekly basis, and most of the time, a lot of prominent leaders being invited to participate in the debate. People like Ronald Reagan in the past, people like Benazir Bhutto, people like David Cameron and the others, and not only politicians and leaders, but also celebrities being invited to the Oxford Union debates. It's either they are debating in a form of normal debates, two teams debating on certain topics, or they will be invited individually. And I think from Malaysia, Dr. Mahathir have been invited twice to the Oxford Union debate. And of late, people like Mehdi Hassan is one of the favorite guests of the debate, because ideas is sacred for Oxford students, for Oxford Union, and for Oxford University itself. But idea alone is not enough. The dialectic process of accepting opposing, discussing the ideas is one of the, let me say, most important process that the university and the students value a lot. So for them, ideas will lead to another ideas based on that dialectic process, and part of the process is through debate. So you asked me what did I do there. I was invited by the student unions, by the organizer, to debate. I'm not sure whether this topic is still relevant in most Muslim countries, but even in these modern days, I'm not sure whether it's still relevant, because numerous and, let me say, tons of articles, tons of, let me say, debate has been produced, has been organized, talking about the issue, and we ended up saying that, okay, in the end, democracy is the best available system for Muslims all over the world in order to deter any despotic leaders to dictate the people's life, in order to stop or to prevent any dictators to rule any Muslim countries, because dictatorship, despotism and injustice will deter development and the well-being of the people. But in the West, I think just because of the, let me say, recent escalations, the rise of Islamophobia and other things, they started to bring this topic back. So we were divided into two teams. Myself, the proponent of the motion, which is, I mean, they believe that Islam is incompatible with democracy, was consists of, I mean, three people who strongly believe that Islam has no place in democracy, and Islam should accommodate itself with democracy, with Western value that they believe as democratic. On the other side, the opposition bench was myself and one Serbian Muslim minister, and Majid Nawaz, a very controversial figure in Muslims or in the UK and also Muslims in Europe. So, I mean, some people even question me of being on the same bench with him, and even they question why should he be in the bench, saying that Islam is compatible with democracy, because all this while he was known notoriously of criticizing Islam and Islamism and the Islamists and some part of Islamic law. But again, he made his point very clear, talking that it's not against Islam. He himself is the proponent of saying that Islam is compatible with the modern life, or whatever. But anyway, so there was me and the others. So the debate has its own ground rules, in which everybody will be given 9 to 10 minutes to bring forth their idea, to explain their thoughts and their arguments. Towards the end, the floor will vote for whichever team that they agreed with.
And I just want to mention, interestingly, you mentioned about that you personally believe that this topic is actually not relevant in into this context, especially now that we already have multiple of studies and multiple of discussions about whether Islam is compatible with democracy. However, I believe that the reasons why it is being raised now is because the rise of Islamophobia and xenophobic. So do you personally believe that, this topic or, this motion is based on racism and also xenophobic motion?
I'm not sure about that, but just like I explained earlier, for Oxford Union, for Oxford students, debating ideas is part of their culture, is part of their identity, is part of, let me say, their way of life that makes who they are. So for them, any topic, sometime when I first invited, I tried to dig out from the YouTube and internet about the topics that have been debated in Oxford Union debate. some of them sounds very funny, sounds very peculiar,
Yeah.
sounds very awkward, but they do debate things, they do debate ideas, they do debate issues that maybe some people thought that, these are not to be debated or we are wasting our time. But, for them, it's part of their intellectual, let me say, cup of tea.
Yeah.
So, but again, coming back to the topic of xenophobia and Islamophobia and racism, yes, unfortunately, it is in the rise, partly because of the economic situation in most European countries, number one, and number two, the influx of, let's say, Muslim refugees
Yes.
as a result of the Arab Spring that happened 10 years ago, and thirdly because of the let's say the global politics and the geopolitics in the Middle East, certain crises that happened, which was miscommunicated or misinterpreted by the Western society, and partly and heavily because of the vicious agenda of certain media who are very pro Zionist, I would say, and pro-Israel. Yeah.
So what's your view if you were to have it as a culture here in education system in Malaysia?
Oh, if you still remember, when I was in the ministry, there are two things that I did. Number one is the Speaker's Corner.
Speaker's Corner.
I mandated it. I make it mandatory for every schools to have their own Speaker's Corner, in which students is to be trained to give a public speaking, to make their performance or to present their case. I mean, teachers are encouraged to train their students to come forward, to share with his friends or her friends their ideas, their thoughts, and their talents. Maybe they can sing, they can give speech. They
So
can
not just public speaking.
It's not
Any
only
kind of
public.
talents.
Yeah, they can recite syair, they can recite pantun, or maybe if they know how to make some magic tricks, they are free to do it. But there must be Speaker's Corner. I don't know what happened now to those Speaker's Corner. I still remember when I visited schools, and I love to pop out in any schools, in any random schools when I was in the ministry. So the teachers, and especially the guru besar and the principals, the pengetua, would love to show to me all this decorated stage for Speaker's Corner. I appreciated those, but I told them, actually, it's not the physical thing that I mean by Speaker's Corner. But what I want from Speaker's Corner is for the students to have the courage, to have the exposure, and to be pushed forward to share their thoughts, to show their talents.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't need to wait for Malaysia Got Talent or Academy Fantasia until for them to show their talent. But I mean, schools should allow a space of freedom.
It started from classroom.
From classroom, from the within the school fans. I mean, they should be nurtured. They should be taught to express their opinions, to show their talents, to share with others what they have in their heart and in their mind. So that was a very idea. But I don't know, with the change of government, with COVID came, and one thing about Malaysian education system is, with the change of the minister, sometimes the officials, people keep blaming the politicians, the ministers, but they forgot that the one who execute, the one that normally make things happen are the officials, the officers in the ministry. Sometimes they wanted to please their master, the minister, the new minister. They come up with new idea, which they say that you must not follow the previous minister. You must bring a new idea. In order to please, in order to bodek lah, kita kata dalam bahasa Melayu, the minister, they will come out with mumbo-jumbo idea, and so the minister, and most of the time the ministers are not from education background, and some of them has zero information on what's happening on the ground, would easily buy whatever being proposed to them by the officers. So say, okay, it is good, let's go for it. And the one would be blamed are the politicians, are the ministers. So this is where, when I was there, when they came out with a lot of all sort of things, I said, no, it's not about me, it's not about the ministry, it's about the people. Put people's interests first, number one. Number two, what is our vision for the country? So I'm not only going to listen to you alone, we get others, we get the teachers, we get the NGOs, we get the parents, and I would like to share my vision. This is my vision. Okay, based on this vision, we try to accommodate, we try to engage with others, so the future that we want to build for our country, for our nation, through education, is based on our collective inner consciousness and based on our collective dream for the country and for our children. So that is the Speaker's Corner. Sorry to drag it long. And then number two, if you still remember, I revived the students' unions. So I tried, and I really, let me say, ordered the VCs of our public universities and our private universities to establish students' unions in their respected university. And I did also revive the Speaker's Corner on the 19th of December 2018 in I'm not sure what happened to the Speaker's Corner, because that was the very first Speaker's Corner in the university in Malaysia. It's very monumental, it's very historic, and that resembles, that reflects the idea of the power of the student, the empowerment of our students. So those two things are what I did then. But if you ask me about my wish, about my vision for our higher education, I would like to see all universities to have a similar events like Oxford Union Debates. The other day I was invited to Festival Idea that was organized by Kementerian Pengajian Tinggi, Minister of Higher Education. I did share my view on this. The KSU was there, the Minister, Datuk Sri Zamri was there. I told them I would love to see our universities to become a platform where ideas being debated. We have a lot of things to debate. Put aside, cheap political rhetoric. I'm talking about ideas that should be debated. I would love to see for example, organize talks about the way forward for Malaysia in BRICS. They can invite people who are pro-BRICS and those who are against BRICS. Let them debate their idea. So we can invite the ministers, we can invite the whole public to listen to it. So I was giving an example on how in the early 70s there was a debate between two giants in intelligentsia. Prof. Nakib Alatas and his brother, Syed Hussein Alatas. And guess who was the moderator?
Who?
PMX. PM Anwar himself was the moderator, moderating between these two contradicting giant of the academia, but happen they are siblings. But those kind of debates that we want, talking about, for example, the ESG that we're having, the new, let me say, renewable energy policies that we have. We want debates on it. Carbon credit, in which it's very controversial from moral point of view, and from financial it's very lucrative, but we want it to be debated. We want our mass to know more about it. A lot of other issues that could be debated, but unfortunately it did not happen in our universities. I would love to see that we have some kind of monumental and landmark events, either in or either in USM, UKM, IIUM, that could be watched by public, that public are waiting for it. Those kind of things.
That is one of the beauty of debate, that it empower, and especially taught in the perspective of freedom of speech. We give the power to the students to share their thoughts.
And not only that, Betty, not only that. If you look at Islamic tradition or Muslim tradition, a lot of our, let we say, knowledge, whether it is our theology, ilmu kalam, akidah, or whether it's in our fiqh, or whether it is in our logic or mantiq, in a lot of disciplines of knowledge that been developed by earlier Muslim scholars, most of them were the result of debate, jidal, munadhara, that what they call, especially the Hanafi madhab. The Hanafi madhab was based on the discussions, the dialectic process that happened between the Imam Abu Hanifa and his students, and later on between his students and their disciples. I mean, so all these dialogues, all this jidal, all this munadhara will lead to synthesis of knowledge. So from ideas seeking for solutions, it will breed new questions, more questions that will invite more solutions, more options, more answers that will continue to create more questions. This is where we could see, millions and tons of encyclopedia or volumes of books in different discipline of knowledge of Islam that have been produced was actually the result of debate, munadhara, jidal, and those kind of things.
MashaAllah.
The dialectic process.
The dialectic process. I would like to go back into the topic itself. So I just want to read one of the stands or points mentioned by one of the proposition is that it seems like the main argument here is that Islam could not be compatible with democracy because divine law would always trump human law. So I think before we go further into that, can you share with us about the democracy? Because you yourself, as a politician, the person who involved in this, what is the view of Islam towards democracy?
No, at the end of the day, if you look at the proposition of the proponents of that motion, he said that, God's law as being perceived by the followers of Islam is always triumph, is always above the human law. But again, what does he mean by human law? Because any human law must base on certain values, must base on certain principles and guiding principles. So those values, those guiding principles, where do they come from? It's either they're from certain beliefs, certain thoughts that have been adhered by the majority of the people, or it is some set of divine rulings, divine teachings that people adhere to, or it was based on certain inherited cultures, inherited, let we say, dogma that had been believed by certain community. So any human laws must base on certain ground. It must base on certain moral values. It must base on certain guiding thoughts.
It's like principles.
Guiding principles. So even then, the proposition is an oxymoron. yeah, because as if he's trying to say that God laws and human laws are always contradicting, without looking at human laws actually was inspired by the revelation. This is the case. For example, if you look at the many of the rulings, it was based on certain ideology. It was based on certain conviction. It was based on certain values that people adhere to. Judeo-Christianity was the basic moral ground of most of the, let us say, laws in the West. Of late, you could see for certain countries that adhere to socialism, they have their moral ground that been prepared by Karl Marx in his Das Kapital, or maybe certain ideology that been adhered by certain people, that became the moral ground. So for Muslims, whether we like it or not, whether they like it or not, but for us, we strongly believe that whatever law that we make must base on certain guiding principles that going back to the revelation. And when we're talking about guiding principles, it does not mean a certain set of rules or certain set of laws that have been ordained to be implemented in its literal message. No, in its literal form. But what I mean is the message from the revelation that we adhere to. The principle of justice, the principle of amana, the principles of equity, the principles of not to impose injustice on others, principle of ihsan, benevolence, a lot of other things. Those are the things, those are the principles that guide us in enacting any rulings, in enacting any laws that I strongly believe is universal in nature.
Dear listeners, that's the end of the first part of the interview with Dr. Maszlee Malik, the chairman of International Institute of Advanced Islamic Studies, IAIS, and the former of Malaysia's Minister of Education on the topic, Is Islam Compatible with Democracy? Thank you very much for listening to us today. If you have any questions or would like to leave your thoughts on today's topic, you can do so by leaving comment or the comment section of this airing on Facebook and YouTube, or simply send us a message through WhatsApp at 011-29004004. Be sure to tune in to us next week to listen to the second part of the interview, special only at IKIM FM Inspirasi Utama.